So it's been a couple days since the Supreme Court issued their ruling in that birthright citizenship case. And as you know, it's not really about the issue of birthright citizenship. They didn't rule on that at all. It was about nationwide injunctions being imposed by federal district court judges. And the issue, grew out of the birthright citizenship case. And so anyway, it's been a couple days. And so maybe people have calmed down a little bit about it. If you've watched my videos on this, you know that people greatly exaggerated what the effects of that Supreme Court decision are. It's not nearly as bad as people have made it out to be. I don't think it was a good decision. It was, as this Supreme Court often does, it tries to get a result that it wants without any sort of coherent explanation in their opinion. And they essentially made a colossal mess that it's going to have to be fleshed out with additional litigation, probably over many, many years, because the Supreme Court is just such a disaster. But, generally speaking, this issue of nationwide injunctions, it's an issue, and it has been a problem the way some district judges have used and abused nationwide injunctions. I don't want to get into it too much because I've already dealt with it, so please go watch those videos if you haven't already. But I will say this, just to reiterate, because it is important. There is nothing in the Constitution that empowers a district court judge to impose a nationwide injunction. And when we're talking about a nationwide injunction, what we're talking about is a temporary order. People need to keep that in mind. It's a temporary order. It's a temporary injunction. It's not the end of the world. If a temporary injunction is imposed or not imposed, they're temporary. What's really going to matter is how the underlying lawsuit is ultimately decided, not the temporary injunction. But there's nothing in the Constitution. Let me go back. And what a temporary injunction is, essentially, is it's an order, a temporary order by a judge, and a nationwide injunction is one in which a district judge who sits in a very small geographical jurisdiction is imposing their order outside of their jurisdiction, right? District courts have subject matter jurisdiction and geographical jurisdiction. And generally speaking, their orders carry no weight outside of their jurisdiction. And that's what we're talking about here. Injunctions that extend beyond their geographic jurisdiction. That's kind of a problem, and it has been abused over the years. And there's nothing in the Constitution that empowers a district judge to do that. There's also nothing in federal law. We have federal rules of procedure, that judges follow, that give them authority to do this and that, and all kinds of things. And in the cases before them, all of that is set by Congress. And there's nothing in our federal law or our federal procedures that empower a district judge to impose a nationwide injunction beyond their jurisdiction. So the people have really taken this to the extreme in some of their commentary. But one of the things I told you in those videos is that there's other things that can be done to block some of Trump's illegal executive orders. Ultimately, these things are going to be decided by the lawsuits that have been filed challenging Trump's executive orders, but those take time. You got to file them in district court. You got to go through the whole discovery process and pretrials and arguments and this and that. And finally, you have a trial. Then you wait forever for a ruling, and then it gets appealed and it goes up to the appellate court. And maybe you start with a 3-judge panel who issues a ruling. Then the losing party asks for a rehearing en banc, and then it goes to them, and you got to wait for months for that. And then the losing party from the full circuit court of appeals, they challenge it up to the Supreme Court, and maybe they take it, maybe they don't, maybe they hear it a year from now, then we got to wait for, it's a long drawn out process, right? But ultimately, it's those cases that have to wind their way through that process that will ultimately matter, will decide these issues of Trump's executive orders. These injunctions temporarily block them. Now, if you can't do a nationwide injunction, there are other ways to block them, basically in a nationwide sort of way. And one of those ways that I talked about is by filing these lawsuits and refiling them as class actions. Now, class action lawsuits are specifically authorized by federal legislation, by the rules of procedure. And if there is a class action lawsuit, they automatically, once you have a class certified, include people from outside a judge's geographical jurisdiction. But it's okay because it's permitted by statutory law. And so then you can issue an injunction that will essentially apply nationwide to everyone who's affected. So that is a way to get around, this striking down or limiting these nationwide injunctions. So I explained that. And also beyond that, the court also invited them to do this. Even while it started in oral arguments, the justices who were very skeptical of allowing these nationwide injunctions to continue, also said, hey, isn't there a better way to do this that is actually, the more proper way to do it? Instead of a judge imposing a nationwide injunction beyond their jurisdiction when there's nothing empowering them to do that, wouldn't it be better to file these things as class action lawsuits and deal with it that way? That's probably the better way to go. They said this on the bench. Some of these these Republican judges on the court said this on the bench, and then they explicitly said it in their opinion. They said, look, file these things as class actions. And guess what? It's already starting to happen, because some of these groups that challenge Trump's executive orders heard loud and clear, they got the message during oral arguments on this, months ago, whenever it happened. And so they anticipated this. It was pretty obvious that this was the direction they were going. Having listened to those oral arguments, it was pretty clear that there were enough justices who were going to generally rule in Trump's favor on the issue of nationwide injunctions, but that they may very well allow these things to be blocked, Trump's orders to be blocked via class action lawsuit and orders pursuant to that. And so these groups heard the justices and they prepared their cases in anticipation of exactly this ruling. And so as soon as this ruling came out, they refiled their cases. I've got an article here from Politico. Let me read just a little of this for you. Group suing over Trump's birthright order seeks to convert case to try that again. Seeks to convert case to a class action lawsuit. It's among several of the workarounds that Trump adversaries are poised to seize on after the justices' Friday ruling. An organization representing immigrants fighting President Donald Trump's birthright citizenship order wasted little time seeking to recalibrate its legal strategy to block the president's policy despite the high court's restrictions on nationwide injunctions. CASA Incorporated is asking a federal judge in Maryland for an emergency block on Trump's policy, which would deny citizenship to children, blah, 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 and said it has refiled its broader lawsuit as a class action case. Again, why did they do this? They did it because the Supreme Court essentially told them to do this. And by the way, because people have, again, taken this case all out of context and said, well, since they ruled in Trump's favor on this nationwide injunction thing, that means they're going to rule in his favor on the issue of birthright citizenship. They're not going to. Okay, I can't guarantee that, given how horrible this court is, but even this court, I do not believe, is going to rule in Trump's favor ultimately on the issue of birthright citizenship. It's not going to happen. And if they were, Why would they so clearly invite these groups and just say, hey, why don't you file these things as class actions? I mean, why would they be helping them in that way? Why would they be saying that if they were, so I just don't buy it. Anyway, let me continue a little bit here. Class action lawsuits are one of the ways that the Supreme Court explicitly indicated Friday were permissible to broadly block a federal government policy. It's among several exceptions or workarounds that Trump adversaries are poised to seize on after the justices sharply limited judges' ability to issue nationwide injunctions. So the court very clearly invited them to do this. And this isn't the only way. There's other ways. This is just the easiest way, doing it by class action lawsuit. There's other ways to arrive at the exact same place you were at with the nationwide injunction. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. There's other things related to this nationwide injunction case that are actually very, very positive for those of us who are adamantly opposed to Donald Trump and his policies that we can now use to our benefit. I will be talking about that more. So please stay tuned for those videos, because this is not all bad. And like I said, I wouldn't have written the opinion this way. I think there are times when perhaps nationwide injunctions are appropriate. I think it's really been abused. But here's the thing too. Congress can give district court judges the authority to impose nationwide injunctions, and they can set the terms and the circumstances and the tests to use and all this kind of stuff. They can very clearly delineate a district court judge's power to impose nationwide injunctions. They can do that. They explicitly, under Article 1 of the Constitution, have the authority to, pass rules, rules of procedure and stuff that the courts have to go by. So they can put that back. They can empower district court judges to issue nationwide injunctions if they want to. If Democrats can ever figure out a way to win elections again, then maybe they can pass a law reinstituting the ability for district judges to impose nationwide injunctions, but not doing it on a, just however they want to. Limit it and rein it in so it's used in a more responsible way and not abused as some judges have done. So anyway, it's really not as bad as people say. And so I'm going to be talking more about that, in particular ways that we're really going to appreciate the fact that district judges can't do these nationwide injunctions anymore. As soon as there is, God willing, a new Democrat president in January of 2029, you will really see the benefit then. And I'm going to explain that on an upcoming video. So please subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't done so already, so you don't miss that video. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.